All right, thanks for joining us today. We are looking at the special object number 005 from Spider-Man and Venom Absolute Carnage. This is all black, the Necrosword. Pretty cool object. We're going to break it down. We're going to look at some different ways you can use it and some different characters that it might work well on. Okay, first let's break down what it is. It is a heavy object. It has indestructible, equip any, and when it becomes unequipped, it drops. What it gives you for 15 points is Giant Reach 2. Also, when this character makes a close attack, opposing characters can't use shape change or super senses and can't reduce damage below 1. Now that gives you a couple good things in there. First of all, your opponent can't use shape change, can't use super senses. So not even like the boost that precision strike gives you against super senses, this sword just takes it away. They can't use shape change, can't use super senses. And also they can't reduce the damage below 1. Okay, let's take a look now at how you can get this sword into action. Now this applies to any type of equipment, but we're going to take a look at how you can quickly get equipment on your characters. The way I use equipment, I like to be able to try to get that on a figure on turn 1. So what we have here are different ways you can do it. For heavy equipment, you're going to, if you want another character to pick it up, remember you're going to need somebody with super strength. So whenever I want to use somebody to pick up heavy equipment, my go-to is Ape Batman, depending on the format limitations. So if it's not limited to modern age, Ape Batman's good. You notice he has an 8 movement with sidestep, and he has super strength through his trait. Remember, on equipment, you can pick up a piece of equipment during a move. When you move, not necessarily a move action, just when you move, you can pick up equipment or any other object. And you can also put down equipment when you move. So Ape Batman can move 8 squares, pick up equipment, carry it back. Then he could sidestep 2 squares and drop the equipment in somebody's square so that then they can equip that object. That's one way to do it. On this particular object, though, I like the TK options. So you have 4 characters up on the screen there. They are all 25 points, so a low investment into your team build. We have Ultra Humanite, who has TK. We have Phoenix, that has TK. We have Lieutenant Kyle, and we have Magneto. All of them could TK that heavy object into the square of the opponent you want to equip it onto on the first turn, and then that person can equip it first turn. So you spend an action to TK it, then you spend an action to equip it onto whoever is going to be your attacker. For this particular one, I like the TK option because then turn 2, you can TK out your character, and the characters I'm going to look at today, you could get them across the map on turn 2 if you use the TK options here. Okay, so these characters that can use the sword, I chose to highlight today because they can get across the board on turn 2, especially when you team them up with that TK that can also get the sword on you on turn 1. So we have Red Death. He's the highest point option on here at his higher point value, which is 200 points. So on a standard 300 point build, you could do the 200 point Red Death. You can do one of those TKers that are coming in for 25 points and the sword, which is 15 points. And that still leaves you room to build where you can put in some perplex characters to get an Alpha Strike type of team. So you can bump up all this damage on these characters. You'll have enough room in your build to do that. And on Black Widow or Nova or the lower point Red Death, you'll even have extra room where you could put in secondary attackers or some other things. Okay, let's look at each one of them. Red Death, what he brings you for 200 points is a 14 movement hypersonic, 11 attack, 18 defense, 3 damage with prob. At 100 points, he's bringing you a 13 movement hypersonic, 10 attack, 18 defense, 3 damage. And what he does is he has extra penetrating damage after the attack. He does that to people, to any characters that are adjacent to his target or himself. So he deals out penetrating to all those figures after the attack. So you perplex up his damage to a 5 or a 6, and now you have some serious damage output that can happen on turn 2 all the way into your opponent's starting area. On Black Widow, she's coming in at 100 points. What she has is an 11 movement, 11 attack, 18 defense, 3 damage. She also can give out extra penetrating damage, but the way she gets across the board, since you can't TK her, since she is a peanut base, she does have the sidestep. She has hypersonic, and she has once per game free half speed and move. So that can get her where she can attack into an opponent's starting area on turn 2. Her deal with the placement is she can hypersonic, and then when she hits, after resolutions, she can place the hit target adjacent to a square she moved through or into, and then deal them penetrating damage after that placement. So again, you get the base damage plus some extra penetrating after the fact to hopefully KO one of your opponent's figures on turn 2. Nova is coming in with 125 points. She has Power Cosmic. She has a 12 movement hypersonic, 11 attack, 18 defense, 4 damage with her own perplex. So again, you can get her across the board turn 1 with the assistance of some TK. Oh, I'm sorry, turn 2 with the assistance of the TK. Now, one other way you can do that is through Quake. You could get pretty far across the board with some of the figures that can do charge without having to half their movement. But what we're going to look at here is how that Necrosword can combine with multi-target Quake. So charge Quake is a usual type of power combination. We're looking at Minotaur here just to show that he has charge where you can move in a direct path and therefore you don't have to half his speed value. And then he also is great because you can get that full movement and then +3 to his attack because he gets +1 for every 2 squares he moved. So that 11 attack on his open and click can become a 14 attack value with 4 damage, and that's pretty darn good. And then you can also pick up prob or the Mystic's team ability at the start of the game, depending on what you want to use. Okay, but let's break down that multi-target Quake. So characters that can Quake, if you can get single target, it deals normal damage. But multi-target with a giant reach gives you the chance to target up a lot of different characters. And then the cool thing on the Necrosword is usually multi-target Quake, your damage becomes 2. So if you're hitting people that have reducers, you might not be dealing any damage to them. But with the Necrosword, it makes it so that you cannot reduce below 1. So even with multi-target Quake, you can hit a lot of characters and they won't be able to reduce that damage below 1. So it's a great way to take out like a Colossal Retail type of team or a bunch of characters that have reducers. You can hit them all and ding them for 1 damage. So that's another way to keep in mind when you do that team build with the Necrosword. All in all, I think it's a pretty cool object, low costed, and the giant reach on top of the close attack is great. Getting past shape change and super senses, and then having a damage that cannot be reduced below 1. I see Necrosword finding its way onto some different types of team builds. Hopefully today you've seen how you could build an Alpha Strike type of team with it, and maybe catch your opponent off guard if they haven't seen this video, and get your attacker over there round 2, take out one of their big threats. All right, if you do build that and it works out for you, let me know in the comments below. Check it out. If you dig what we do, go ahead and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.